I'm Wayne DeLauder, and Bob Bargan asked me to explain from the pilot's point of view the Babylift operation that'll supplement maybe what Sergeant Fugere explained in terms of the loading, offloading, and his operation back there. The two pilots on this flight were Bill Aubrey, my co-pilot, and myself as an aircraft commander. The flight originated for that portion of the Babylift in Kadena, which is on Okinawa, a Japanese island, and we pre-planned, pre-flighted for what we thought was going to be in the direction of home for us via Guam, but that didn't happen. We got out there ready to go. The loadmasters had loaded the airplane, configured it such that it would have been right for that type of leg, when we heard from the command post that things have changed. They asked us to send the loadmasters to pick up some weapons and for us to come into base operations, and we would get a briefing on our portion of the flight. When we got there, an intel officer in an office sat us down and brought in another crew, which was a first lieutenant, which is kind of unheard of for this particular airplane. You generally are at least a captain before you're an aircraft commander, but he was a first lieutenant, and so we were briefed on how to get down to Vietnam with different types of navigation aids, and when we were to get there, the intel officer said we should come in no lower than right on top of the base, no lower than about 10,000 feet, maybe even higher, and do a tight spiral to stay within the confines of a cylinder up over Nhut, because it was so insecure the further away from Nhut that you got. So when he explained that, I noticed that the first lieutenant was sitting right across from me in a chair. He got just pale white and he passed out, and I caught him. The intel officer says, okay, we've got to get another crew. He just couldn't handle the thought of doing that, I guess. So he said we've got to get another crew in there to take that airplane. I had flown in there for about 10 years, starting in 1965, and then I had a full year, 12-month assignment to Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam, flying actually this airplane here. And with that airplane, though it's been about 8 years now since I'd flown that tactical approaches, those things stick with you. And so it was nothing brand new for me, but it was a little too much for that young first lieutenant. So we got back, Bill and I got back into the airplane and got on down to Nhut and made that tight spiraling approach with a tight circle land, and Renee explained pretty much what happened on the ground there, so I won't go into any detail, but my concern was that if we made a brakes release max power takeoff, the jerk and the acceleration is going to roll back all those 189 folks back there that were sitting just on the floor. They're going to wind up in the tail, and so I modified the takeoff from what you would normally do in that environment, and more or less slowly accelerated, but kept accelerating at a constant rate, adding the power at liftoff to max power, climb power, and did in reverse what we had done coming down, that being a tight spiraling climb. Once we got up to about 10,000 feet, I resumed a eastward climb towards the Philippines, where we're heading, that being Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. Our cruise altitude was probably, I don't recall exactly, but normally it would be at least 28,000 feet, so we were up around 28, and I got a call from one of the loadmasters, probably Sergeant Fougeray, that we had some problems back there with respiratory. Some of these babies had some respiratory issues, and so I did a max dive or descent, like what we call an emergency descent. I didn't even call for a clearance when I understood what was happening back there. Got them down, and I don't know that we lost any of them, but some of them pretty bad shape with respiratory colds and influenza, I suppose. Landed, and I know Renee talked about the saturation of the field that they had at Clark in the Philippines. So even though we had some mechanical issues and we were up against a normal maximum day, crew duty day, we weren't in normal conditions, situations here. So, and we had to get the airplane out, and so we flew it back. We had unloaded enough fuel, the maximum amount of fuel out of when we left Kadena to be able to get back up there on this all in one day. So that occurred. When we went into crew rest, next morning we got up, and then we were to go to Elmendorf Air Force Base, which is right adjacent to Anchorage International. I was going near a convenience shop near base ops, or part of base ops, and saw some mail pouch chewing tobacco. Now, I had chewed this as a young kid driving tractors for hauling hay for the farmers, and the farmers used to keep some of this tobacco in their toolboxes, and we would snitch that once in a while. Hadn't had any for years, so I thought, well, why not? Put a plug in my mouth, and instantly got really, I could hardly walk when I got stood up. So spit that out, and fortunately we had a little bit of a delay, but that situation led me to believe that I shouldn't be flying that airplane, so that leg. So Bill flew from Kadena up to Elmendorf, and I just sat there and assisted him as best I could at that point. The only thing my wife was concerned about, or was a little perturbed, she had hoped that I'd somehow bring back one of those babies, excuse me, but that wasn't in the works, so wasn't able to do that. So we had a lot of good memories of that, I'm sure. Even after 44 years later, I was able to come up with some of these details, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about that.